It's summer, the sun's out, that makes it the perfect time to do some summer portraits, and I've got 5 top tips to make your next summer portrait session amazing. If you only take one tip away from this entire video, it's this. Don't put your subject in the sun, because if you do, well, you're going to get this kind of photo. High contrast, really not a flattering picture and not fun for your subject. Always try and find the shade, for example, under a tree. So if I move Chloe under a tree, she'll be in the shade, which will be more comfortable for her, but also better light for us as photographers. But trees have a problem, because shade from trees is often fairly dappled, and that doesn't look good either. Shade and hot spots. The secret is turn your model around. So if I come from this side, the sun is from, well, behind where you are. So now I'm shooting into the sun, but Chloe is in the shade, and the end result is just a much nicer portrait. However, if you are stuck with no shade whatsoever, you can always make your own. For example, using a white umbrella. So if I move Chloe back into the sun, but now she's got a nice big white umbrella, that becomes her own personal cloud, and now I get absolutely beautiful light because she's making her own shade. Let's talk camera settings. First of all, I'm going to be working in Aperture Priority mode. Now, if you know all about your camera, manual mode is great, but if you're a beginner at portraits, just set your aperture in Aperture Priority mode and go for a wide open aperture, or as close as you can. In this case, I've got the 45mm f1.2 from OM System, so I'm going to be working at f1.2, and that will give me the blurriest background, maximum separation. One other thing that's worth remembering is to lock in a fixed white balance, because a lot of green will influence the auto white balance your camera decides upon. However, if you work in RAW format, you can fix that later in post. The OM System cameras, like my OM System OM1 Mark II, are packed full of really useful features for portraits, and my favourite one by far is the autofocus ability called Human Autofocus. Put that on and instantly it'll lock onto faces, even eyes, even with sunglasses on. That means you can concentrate on the framing and you can let the camera worry about the autofocus. Although we're talking about portraits, we also have to think about the backgrounds, because your camera, being in Aperture Priority mode, will be influenced by the background. For example, if Chloe is in the shade and the background is in full sun, if I try and take a picture here, well, I'm going to end up with the camera trying to do everything, and it can't expose for both things at once, and I end up with a fairly dark portrait. So there's a thing called exposure compensation on your camera. You need to tell it to overexpose what it thinks is the correct exposure, in this case by about 2 stops, and that will bias the exposure to the face, because you always want to have the face correctly exposed. Summer is the perfect time to be out in the garden taking portraits, and if you spend a little bit of time setting your camera up and finding the right light, you're going to get some great photos. I'm Gavin Hoey, thanks for watching.